One of the first major decisions that you'll have to make in Fallout New Vegas is choosing your traits. These are like perks, but they give bigger benefits. But they also always come with a negative effect. There are 16 different traits that you can choose from, but you can only use a maximum of 2 of them, and you can't change them until later on in the game. So in this video, I will be going over each trait and explaining what they do, to help you decide which traits are best for you. But before this video starts, if you're a fan of the Fallout games and the Fallout TV show, click the link in the pinned comment of this video to join my Fallout Discord server, where you can discuss the Fallout games and the TV show, or find other people to play Fallout 76 with. And now let's start at the top of the list. The Built to Destroy trait will increase your chance to get critical hits by 3%, but weapons will break 15% faster. The 3% increased chance to crit can be really nice, and your weapons breaking faster can be managed if you have a way to fix them. But if you're mainly using rare weapons, it can be hard to keep them in good condition. So you will only really want this trait if you're running a crit build. Otherwise, there are much better options. The Claustrophobia and Early Bird traits will increase your special stats but also decrease them. They basically work the same way, so we'll group these together. For the Claustrophobia trait, you will gain +1 to all of your specials when you're outside, but you will lose 1 point from every special skill while you're indoors. I would pass on this one because even though the game is large, you will still spend a decent amount of time indoors. There will also be a lot of talking that will happen indoors, so with this trait, you will pretty much always be -1 in charisma when talking to NPCs. Early Bird is also a bad choice because you'll gain +2 to every special stat during the hours of 6 AM to 12 PM, but you'll be -1 to all specials from 6 PM to 6 AM. That +2 will only be available to you for 6 hours per day, while the -1 will affect you for 12 hours per day. This will lead to you having to wait and plan out a lot of what you do, so that you're only doing things during the time that you have the +2 bonus, which just isn't worth it. The Fast Shot trait will make guns and energy weapons fire 20% faster, and use 20% less AP and VATS, but guns and energy weapons will be 20% less accurate. This is actually a pretty good trait. A 20% increase to DPS and shots and VATS costing 20% less AP means that you'll be able to do a lot more damage. The reduced accuracy will only really affect the weapons that already have bad accuracy, but thankfully most of the better weapons in the game will be pretty accurate, so you can afford that 20% reduction. The Four Eyes trait may be the worst trait in the game. This trait will increase your perception special stat by 2 when you're wearing eyeglasses, but your perception stat will permanently be reduced by 1, so that increase of 2 is actually an increase of 1, and you'll only get it if you're wearing glasses, which usually do nothing. That also means that you can't wear other headwear like helmets that will actually give you bonus protection and sometimes other bonuses, so I would avoid this trait. The Good Nature trait will increase your speech, medicine, repair, science, and barter skills by 5, but it will also decrease your energy weapons, explosives, guns, melee weapons, and unarmed skills by 5. This is another really good trait because it gives you a boost to skills that will benefit everyone regardless of their build, and the setbacks are a decrease to every weapon skill, which will suck at first, but as you go through the game you will direct yourself into a build that will only use one of those weapon types, so it's not really that big of a deal, and you gain 5 points and some very useful skills to make up for it. The Heavy-Handed trait will make melee and unarmed weapons do 20% more damage, but melee and unarmed weapons will do 60% less critical hit damage. This trait will work best for specific melee builds that use weapons that don't rely on critical hits, and instead they focus on boosting your attack damage so that your weapons hit so hard that they feel like critical hits. But if you aren't going for a build like that, and you don't want to use melee weapons, you'll want to avoid this trait. The Hoarder trait will increase your carry weight by 25 pounds, but if you're carrying less than 160 pounds of items, you will lose 1 point in every special stat. Personally, I like the Hoarder trait because extra carry weight is always helpful. There's a lot of items in the game and most people will end up carrying or wanting to carry a lot of stuff with them, so it's very easy to hit that 160 pounds to avoid the negative effect of this trait. And worst case, you could just pick up all the junk items that you come across to get to 160 pounds. The Hotblooded trait will make you do 15% more damage with any weapon when you're below 50% health. But when you're below 50% health, your perception and agility special stats will be reduced by 2. This trait is good if you're trying to min-max your damage output, but if you're just casually playing the game, there are much better options. The Kamikaze trait will give you 10 extra AP which you can spend in VATS, but this trait will also reduce your damage threshold by 2 and reduce your damage resistances by 15%. Being easier to kill is not worth being able to shoot one more time in VATS, so I would avoid this trait. The Logan's loophole trait is actually a very interesting trait, because it's a trait that technically has 2 positive effects. This trait will double the duration of effects that you gain from consumables like chems, food, stealth boys, and magazines, and you will also never become addicted to chems. The negative effect of this trait is that it caps your level at 30, meaning you'll never be able to advance your character past level 30. This might sound like a bad thing, but it actually isn't, because enemies in Fallout New Vegas level up with your character. So if you reach level 30 and it's your max level because of this trait, then the enemies in the game also reach their max level, instead of later game enemies leveling up as you get to them and becoming very strong. Most of the builds in the game can also be finished before reaching level 30, so you don't really need to go further than level 30. The loose cannon trait increases your attack speed with thrown weapons, but thrown weapons will have a 25% reduced range. This is obviously a waste of a trait unless you're using a thrown weapons build, which I don't think anyone really does. The skilled trait will instantly put 5 points into every skill, which is extremely helpful, but you'll permanently gain 10% less experience from all sources. This is an amazing trait and it pairs really well with Logan's loophole. It's not hard to level up in Fallout New Vegas, so that 10% less experience part really doesn't matter. But being able to start with 5 extra skill points in every skill makes you stronger from the start. And like I mentioned, if you pick Logan's loophole with this trait also makes up for not being able to go past level 30, by gaining more skill points earlier on. The small frame trait will increase your agility special stat by 1, but it will make you take 25% more limb damage. The extra agility may be nice to have, but taking more limb damage means that you're easier to kill, and you'll go through more medical supplies and doctor bags to fix your limbs, making this trait not worth it. The trigger discipline trait is the opposite of the fast shot trait. It will make your guns and energy weapons 20% more accurate, but your guns and energy weapons will fire 20% slower and cost 20% more AP and VATS. This is a good trait because accuracy is always helpful in Fallout New Vegas. When you start playing the game, you'll quickly realize how important accuracy really is. Being more accurate will also mean that you won't use as much ammo and you'll kill enemies quicker. This trait will also make you more accurate in VATS, but VATS will cost more AP, which I feel is a fair trade. And finally, we have the Wild Wasteland trait, which basically just makes your character crazy, and it adds some wacky encounters and changes to the game. This is a trait that you may want to take on a second playthrough of the game to see what it changes, but I would avoid it if you're new to the game as there are much better options. And those are all of the traits in Fallout New Vegas. Personally, I really like Logan's loophole, skilled, and trigger discipline, but I would love to know which of these traits are your favorites in the comments below. I hope this video helps you, and thank you for watching.